Happy Friday, everybody. Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears. It is the weekend. We're finally here, and tomorrow West Virginia will have another key part of their fall camp, and that is another scrimmage. So there will be maybe a little bit of answers that we'll find out from head coach Neil Brown in terms of some position battles. Obviously, you got the will linebacker spot. You have right guard between Jaquay Hubbard and Brandon Yates. And then, of course, the quarterbacks. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. It's not going to be a very in-depth episode. What we'll typically do, and we'll start that today to kind of get you into the rhythm of it a little bit, is we're going to call these Fast Fridays. So these are going to be a shorter episode that we usually do. That kind of recaps everything we've heard throughout the week leading up into that week's game. And also, in case I end up traveling to any of these games, I'm able to knock these videos out and hit the road. So back to quarterbacks. So I've kind of gone back and forth on this whole thing about what West Virginia should do with Garrett Greene, Nicco Marchiol. Should they play them both? Should they not? Well, the answer is no. They shouldn't play them both in the same game in terms of running a true two QB system. I just don't think that stuff just doesn't work. If you look at the history of college football, there's probably been, hundreds of teams that have probably tried to run a two QB system, and only maybe a handful of them actually worked. And in those cases that probably worked. Now, again, I don't know those names or those teams off the top of my head, but I'm assuming those teams had a veteran defense. They had some really good offensive line and some really experienced pass catchers, and it didn't really matter because the talent around them was so good that it kind of didn't really matter. Okay, so that's not necessarily what we have with West Virginia. Yes, the offensive line is good. Is it great? We'll find out. Defensively, I think they are better, much better than they were a year ago. But are they a great defense? That's to be determined. And then obviously the pass catchers, it's a lot of talent that they lost. 4 receivers. You lose Michael Laughlin at tight end, which I know he's been hurt, but I mean that's a loss. You replace him with Cole Taylor from LSU. Does he actually step in and catch passes? We'll see. So I mean there's definitely some stuff to like about this team, but it's not a team that can survive on a 2 QB system. So, anyways, they've got to settle on a guy, whether it's Greene, whether it's Marchiol. You got to settle on one and just go. Now, will they name that starting quarterback publicly anytime soon after this scrimmage? Probably not. I have a pretty good inkling that they're going to hold this thing out until as late as possible, because what's the point in letting Penn State know what you're doing? There's only so many things that you can hold back at this point. And if you could hold anything back, you should. And Penn State's kind of doing the same thing. Coach Franklin's even talking about his third-string quarterback for some reason. Now, you can believe whatever the hell he says there, but Drew Aller is going to be their starting quarterback. In Morgantown, it's a little bit more uncertain because you have the high ceiling of Marchiol, but you have the experience of Garrett Greene, who has shown that he can play and is more than capable. So my thinking is you do this. Unless Nicco has truly separated himself as the guy, which from what I'm hearing, he has not. You roll out Garrett Greene to start the season in Happy Valley against Penn State. Why? Because 1, he's got that experience. 2, that experience leads to confidence. And when you go to Happy Valley, you're going to need confidence. You're going to be able to have those past experiences that you can count on. Garrett Greene, he's not going to be as up and down as he was, heck, even a year ago. Neil Brown has talked about that at length, that he is so much more controlled with his emotions. Now, there's still some stuff he's going to work on with that, but he's a little bit more even keeled than what he was last year, the year before, and so on and so forth. So I think he can handle the roller coaster type vibes of a game, especially on the road. If you throw Nicco out there, and I've said this probably umpteen times on these shows, if you throw Nicco out there and it doesn't go well, that's a huge, huge risk. You may have just ruined the kid's confidence to a point where he may never be able to bounce back. And I'm not saying that Nicco's a fragile kid at all. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability to bounce back. But when it comes to the quarterback position, and Neil has said this himself, you have to be very, very careful with how you bring these kids along. You have to be careful when you first put them on the field. Now, last year, Nicco had to go into the game because they had no choice. When you have a choice, you got to be careful because the position is such a one-man thing, or at least it should be. You have to be smart. If you throw them in there before they're ready, their confidence gets destroyed. You don't know. You don't know how they're going to bounce back. So I think you're better off starting Garrett, seeing how that goes. And if it's a complete train wreck, you go to Nicco. I highly doubt it's going to be a complete train wreck. And I think really, if he's playing competitive football, you keep him in there. If it gets to a point where you feel like, okay, they're competitive, but they should be winning some of these games, then maybe you take a look at Nicco then. I think it's a little bit easier to go from Garrett to Nicco and then back to Garrett if you need be, than if you go Nicco, Garrett, and then back to Nicco. You see what I'm saying? If there has to be a change from the start of the season and then a second change because the initial change doesn't work, it's hard to go back to a kid that the last time you pulled him out of his starting job, he thought he was done for. Garrett Greene, he's been a backup for several years. He's got the experience. He understands. Okay, so that's why I think it's a little bit easier to do that. It's smarter, and I just think that gives West Virginia the best chance to win right out of the gate. I think Nicco Marchiol has a very high ceiling, got great potential, but from everything I'm hearing in practice, it's way too much of this with Nicco. It's too much. Too many. His highs are really high and his lows are really low. He's got to find that steady line, and until he finds that steady line, he can't beat out Garrett Greene. Okay, and decision making is a big part of that. So, anyways, I probably went a little bit longer than I wanted to here today. I know Fast Friday, but quarterbacks, you get a little giddy about this stuff. It's a little fun to talk about. So, we will be back tomorrow, and I did want to throw this out there. If you guys didn't know, we have actually teamed up with Jed Drenning, Owen Schmidt, Wesley Euler, those guys over at In the Gun podcast. So they are a part of us now, and we want to make sure to throw some stuff out their way. They'll have a show coming out tonight. It's the defensive preview. And then Saturday and Sunday, we've got 2 more episodes of Between the Ears. Monday, we'll have another Between the Ears. And then Tuesday is your fully loaded day. We'll have In the Gun, Between the Ears, and we'll have Relatively Sports with Eugene Napoleon. So we've got a lot of stuff for you guys. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to Mountaineers Now on YouTube and In the Gun on YouTube. In the Gun, they have their own YouTube channel, but you can also catch their episodes on mountaineersnow.com. So be sure to make sure you find your way over to those episodes as well. A lot of good stuff. We got stuff going up 7 days a week between us and In the Gun. So hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Mountaineers Now. You can follow me at Callihan_. And Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning on Between the Ears.